Hey everyone, today we're going to be talking a little bit more about long formatted videos versus short-term videos. Now, for those who may not know, I know most of us do, but just in case, we are talking about more along the lines of media on social media. So our long form is anything that is extended. If you ever watched a 5-minute video, 10-minute video, an hour video, longer formatted video. Short form, we kind of see it a little bit more as anything up to roughly a minute, I think, is what they allow now for short form videos. Usually what people will want to watch, I should say. Typically we do see short form on social media, usually about 30 seconds is what we're looking at typically. But I wanted to talk about this topic a little bit more because I find it a little bit more fascinating on how way back when it used to be all about our long form content. We want to see everything in like we're watching a movie almost. We just want to sit down, grab a good drink, get some snacks, and we just wanted to watch our favorite pieces of content, regardless of what it is or what it was, online. Just to pass the time, learn something new. But now it's interesting because we have changed significantly where, and this has been going on for quite a while, but especially more so now in the current year, 2026, it definitely was a lot heavier and I think really started boosting up significantly, at least from what I saw from last year in 2025. It's really weird to see how everything has really twisted and altered and morphed into just 30-second clips. And a lot of it is just like your stereotypical like TikTok clips, your Instagram clips, your YouTube clips, Facebook, everything is pretty much the same now, which is a little frustrating to me as a content creator and as a multimedia specialist. But at the same time, I started realizing and really understanding where this really actually comes in handy, especially along the lines of media marketing and advertisement. This is what this video is going to be about, and I'm going to teach you guys a little bit more on my understanding of what I've found to be the most useful between both formatted forms of media and how we at Be Pro use that towards our advantage. Let's get started. So to get started, I wanted to start off with our long form content. It's really hit or miss depending on what kind of the video it is, because certain videos, they have to be a little bit longer because there's a lot more information on there. But we are trying to figure out what that threshold actually is once it comes to creating this longer piece of media. And what I've found out is sometimes you don't really need to go overboard and leave everything in. Obviously, the best goal is always try to condense everything as much as you can, but still make sure that the story flows, the information makes sense. Everything is still in at least some form of chronological order where people can actually put A, B, and C together and it doesn't all seem so jumbled up. But what I've been realizing is a lot of the videos that we've been creating, and probably even the video I'm making right now for you guys, I'm trying to keep everything edited down to about 10 minutes. Because being that this is more of an educational platform for Be Pro, obviously we're here to teach you, guide you, and mentor you towards all the stuff we do and potentially how you can use little bits and pieces of what we give you and how you might be able to incorporate that into your workflow or your everyday individual life. Doesn't matter. It can all hopefully work and help you in some way, shape, or form. But creating these videos, when I'm editing them and even when I'm recording them, it does take quite a bit. But usually I like to have these recorded in roughly about a half an hour worth of video. If it goes a little bit over, I would say the absolute maximum I tend to go over is probably an extra 15 minutes because I like to give myself a little bit of leeway. Then I can start taking away things I don't need, and then I can start seeing what is necessary for the video and what is not necessary for the video. Then afterwards, I try to cut everything down And I like to try to keep realistically anything down to roughly about 10 minutes. If we need to go over, I really don't want the videos to go over 15 minutes if I can make that a possibility. Once again, it depends on the kind of content I'm creating and the kind of stylized video I'm creating. If you kind of want to see a little bit more of what the different stylizations are of like different forms of content, how they're supposed to be edited differently, because every video needs to be created in a manner specific, very, very specific, and specifically towards what who your target audience is, what the kind of content is to begin with, because everything has a different editing layout and scheduling. That's what I like to do for long-term formatting for videos, and I normally only try to keep them for videos like this and short form content for like a 30-second clip. Could it work for this? Yes, but only to advertise this specific video. So the idea would be to create this video first, get a basic understanding of what I'm talking about, how I'm going to be editing everything, and then based upon all that information, once I'm satisfied with this video after editing, then I would go to my other section for short-term content. For this, obviously, once again, I'll probably keep it towards an absolute maximum of 30 seconds. Obviously, the goal is always try to make it less than that. The less you can get under 30 seconds seems to be the most ideal and where people seem to want to watch the videos more. I think a mass majority of the drop-off I've been seeing, depending on the content, is usually around that 20 to 25 second mark. So I try my best to keep it under that if it's possible. If not, 30 seconds max. I think that's pretty decent. But that's all I would really use the shorts for, is to advertise that I created this video in some way, shape, or form. And then in that specific short, it's a call to action. That's all it really is. It'd be like, hey, I created this video. It would definitely have to be its own significant video and would have no clips really of the long-term content. I try to make them separate as much as I can, because one's for advertising that this video that I'm using for marketing purposes exists. So that's where you can actually split them up and where it seems to be a little bit more ideal on how to actually use them accordingly. With that being said, one, that always doesn't need to be the case. If you want to get more content out there and try to keep that flow going, I would recommend that. But you don't have to, because if you're really good at what you do, then and you have a really good audience and you have a lot of numbers pulling in some good subscriber counts, whatever it might be, maybe you don't need to do that. But from what I've gathered in my the research I've done, it seems to be the best way to actually A, get content out there, and then two, to kind of advertise your own work that's already been created, and then you just got to figure out when to schedule them accordingly towards each other. Do you want them the same day? Split them up based upon hours. One on Monday and then another one on like Wednesday at a certain time. Obviously, you have freedom to choose that, what you think your audience would, be like, oh, this is what his schedule is. Scheduling is extremely important at the same time. So if you have a normal schedule that you have for long form content, keep that. Excellent. Excellent, excellent. Same thing for short. You want to keep that consistent as much as you can. If you don't have any real scheduling in mind, it's okay to test. That's kind of where the fun comes into this kind of content to begin with, in my opinion. I think it's really fun to test what kind of videos are we going to make? How am I going to make them? How are they going to turn out? It's basically this gigantic A/B test. And I love conducting those now, because I'm even doing those for like thumbnails, which will be in a completely different video, which if you're interested in like A/B testing in general, let me know, because I am actually just getting started a little bit more heavily on that specific a user experience kind of deal, where it's just like, hey, does this work and does this work? And let's do a compare and contrast between the two and see what the reaction engagement is. And then you would go ahead and whatever performed the best, then you would use that. What I was saying before, times have really definitely changed, where everything is more like YouTube Shorts. Everything is just a short within 30 seconds. People and businesses, even artists, have to adapt towards that change. And it definitely is becoming a lot more difficult, in my opinion, because it's At first it used to be like creating a movie and then making a trailer for it. So like you have an hour, 2 hour movie. How do you cut that down to a trailer that's maybe about a minute long at most? But now we're taking content, boiling it down to as much as we can, but then boiling it down even more to 30 seconds. And now I personally feel like it's also gotten to the point where there's just like almost like nothing left, and all the content is just boiled down to what can you get across to your audience and to social media platforms within 10 seconds. You're making a movie, creating a trailer, and then you're creating a 10-second trailer to advertise the trailer, to advertise for the full premiere. That seems insane to me, but I do see where also it can be very beneficial. As much as I don't really like it, and the only reason before I get too sidetracked, I'm only going to say I don't really care for it because to me, I feel like it kind of deteriorates the experience a little bit more. And if you can advertise something in 10 seconds beautifully, absolutely go for it. But I think it it chipped away a little too much at people's attention spans. And it's like, if we don't get our information within like 10 seconds, then like we just don't care. And I'm not saying that's for everybody, but obviously, as we all know, there's a good chunk of people out there that only geared towards what information can I gather in 10 seconds, but you also still have to determine, do I care about this? Is this actually for me? And am I actually really going to even pay attention to what is happening within the 10 seconds, or are you just doom scrolling? These are all the things I have to think about when I'm creating videos. It's really difficult, but as a multimedia specialist, as a content creator, as someone who has made YouTube videos for years and who has professionally live streamed on different platforms, and having to create this for myself, create this kind of content for my own business, and then to create this own content even more so on an even higher professional level for Be Pro, it definitely gets easier. You can spot things a lot clearer, but the problem is it gets to a point where you're like, how do I so tightly condense all this information and give it to you guys? How do I do that? And a lot of the times, without any real-time feedback at all, people will only know what they want when they get it. And I understand that can be a very targeting statement. It is. But that's kind of just my personal opinion, where it seems like people aren't going to tell you what kind of content they want. They're not. Why should they? Your clients, your audience, whoever it is that exists online, they will watch your work because they find it entertaining, because they find it educating, because they are gaining something from it. If it's a feeling or whatever, you have to provide the content for them. And then you have to do the work yourself to go into the videos, to go into all that hardcore analytics side of everything and be like, this is my target audience. I gotta figure that out. These are the kind of videos that people are the most interested in. Maybe it's a specific theme, maybe it's a specific form of content. We don't know. Everything we do on here is just, the best way to put it, it's a slot machine. You're pulling that lever and you never know what that outcome's gonna be. There's an algorithm behind it. We don't know what that algorithm is because, YouTube is Vegas. We are just pulling the lever to see what the outcome will be. And if it's a win, all the flashing lights and everything appear and all the happy noises come into play as well, and you guys are satisfied. But there's also that point where we can meet halfway. We're like, okay, well, it's not as much as I was expecting to gain, but, it's something. So it's enough to give me a nice little adrenaline rush and to keep on going. And obviously, sometimes you get nothing and you fail. But we need to fail as content creators, as business owners, and as everyday people, because that's obviously how we learn what not to do anymore and be like, okay, yeah, this didn't work. Let's just try something else. This is where everything connects into the topic that I am talking about. There's a time and place for everything, but we don't know when the time and place is for everything. All we can do is get a very good, educated guess. And with that being said, there are ways to kind of pinpoint a little bit easier on how to make things work more accordingly. Obviously, that's where all the looking into like YouTube analytics, looking into LinkedIn analytics, any platform, really digging deep into there, seeing what the retention rate is, see how people care. But it's all, you're juggling a lot. And that's where this is just very complicated. If you're like me, this is a thrill. I love the adrenaline rush of being like, what works? What doesn't work? What else can I create that will be entertaining and that will be educational in some way, shape, or form? And how's it going to do? Who is going to respond more? I did a lot of compare and contrasting between shorts and long-term content from Be Pro standpoint, and I moved it over to my personal account as well. And then sometimes very, very rarely, but sometimes I will do vice versa. If I make something for my personal account and I want to move it over to Be Pro, how do they perform? That's where the thrill comes in for me. It's like, how do the audiences differ? How do they, where's that medium that they're both like, I like this. Go back to literally step A from the very beginning of this video. Long form content and short form content. They both have their places. They both have times where you should not create either or. It just is, and that's very difficult to explain, but just because you make a long form video doesn't mean you should make a short for it, or vice versa. Sometimes they should be both. I can't tell you what that would be. I can give you a very rough outline, maybe, depending on if I knew what the topic was. Maybe this is a different story, but it comes down to you on what you think is best for yourself and for your company. Hopefully you find entertainment in it. Hopefully you have fun doing it. Have fun in learning what you're doing right, what you're doing wrong, and perfecting that as best as possible. But anyways, that's all for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope this was educational or informative in some way, shape, or form. I hope to see some comments down below on some things you guys may have learned from this, or some things you guys can teach me about this specific topic. But until next time, I'll see you guys later.